Hello and welcome to Collaboration Global's podcast, Being Human Hidden Depths with me, Jill Tiny. As usual with most podcasts, I think everybody that listens to a podcast must realise that the people beforehand have a good natter and end up having a giggle before the podcast even starts. And we go, right, we should be recording this. And we've just had that with Erica. Erica is a fabulous member at Collaboration Global. She'd heard about it for quite some time before she joined. So I'm really pleased that she one Saturday morning I woke up and saw that she'd joined the community. I'm like, yes, it's Erica, she's on board. And I just said to her, how do you pronounce your surname? And she's like, I don't really know. I'm not sure, she said. So Erica Mackay is how it's written, but apparently, according to her husband, who it's his name, it's Mackay. So when you're introduced, is it Mr. and Mrs. Mackay or Mr. and Mrs. Mackay, or is it just everyone says it differently? Welcome, by the way, Erica. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jill. It's an interesting one. I don't think we've ever been introduced as yeah, we hardly together. My husband's in IT, so he likes squirreling around in the background. And but when we went, last year we went to my father-in-law's 90th. So there was a whole room of Mackays. Mackays.
Get it right, lady.
Look, my children correct me when I get it wrong. So
Oh,
I think it's Mackay.
okay. Well, do you know where? I mean, obviously, we've already said it's Scottish, but do you do you know how far back it goes? Is it a clan? Do you have your own tartan and things?
We do. So for my 40th birthday, we did a Scottish tour. We took a bus trip up and we went all the way up to Mackay land, and we bought the tartan and the tie and the booklet to send back to his dad.
Oh, how lovely.
And we've all got, I actually was wearing it earlier. We've got Mackay jumpers. There we go. I can show you. Oh, you're not going to see it now.
There we go. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, apologies. We've got a hoodie being held up with a very
With
blurry picture on it, so you're not missing much at the moment.
No, you're not. Sorry.
What
But
colours are your tartan?
now you're asking me, Jill.
Uh,
I don't know. I can't even get the name right. Now you're asking me for the colors of the
you,
tartan.
you can tell you can tell from the accent that you don't hail from Scotland,
No, no.
Mrs. Mackay. Tell us where you originate and when did you come over to the UK?
Yes, I'm South African, born and bred. My parents are born in South Africa, as are my husband's parents. So the Scottish link is
Ah,
very far behind.
oh wow.
And we've been here 10 years now.
Gosh. So
So yeah.
did you two meet in South Africa?
Yes, met in South Africa, married in South Africa. Both my kids are born there.
Oh wow. So you're quite a newbie to the UK then. What was
Yeah, 10 years is 10 years new.
well, 10 years is nothing really, I met somebody, we moved to a village in Sussex and we had the electrician round and he lived in the village and I said, oh, how long have you been here? He said, oh, I'm a newcomer. He said, they barely talk to me here. He said, I've only been here 25 years. So okay. But they are very friendly in the village, to be fair. But it's that kind of thing. It's like, 10 years is nothing. It's like, so what was your driver to bring you back? Well, I say back to the UK from South Africa.
Um, Mainly my kids. So when my daughter was born, South Africa has got high crime rate, like high unemployment, and
Mm.
when you have a kid, you suddenly think, "Ah, how do I do the best for this baby?" And we had a chat about it, and at the time, my company was willing to move us, so we made a deal. I said, "Fine, I will work for 5 years, give you everything, and then in return, you ship us over." And they did. They kept their word
Excellent.
and transferred us here because we don't have the ancestry or any of the stuff that makes it easier to come. We had to come the work sponsor route and the hard way, but we did it. We got our British passports a year ago now,
Oh,
and
official.
um, and all good.
Lovely. And is it a case that you don't see yourself going back, or you feel like you've got your feet under the table and the UK is the place for you now?
It's a really interesting question. My husband's never going back. He loves it here. He loves rain. He loves cold.
Uh,
He's so happy
love
here.
him already.
I miss sun.
Yeah.
I'm more people, right? So I miss my friends. I miss my family. I'm so blessed in my job that I've got clients back in South Africa, so I do get to go.
Oh, nice.
Um, you know, fairly often, 3, 4 times a year, I get to go back, which is nice. And I can just have my, what I call my top up, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
My friend and I call it topping up our smarty tanks. We just top up our smarty tanks and then we can carry on for a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I can
Um,
imagine.
but then, and my kids are, even when we went for my father-in-law's 90th, they wouldn't survive. They don't know how to be street smart. They don't know how to look after themselves. They don't understand
That's interesting, isn't
how
it?
to protect yourself, right? You learn it in South Africa. You learn this automatic way of being safe.
Yeah.
And my kids haven't learned it. They're so safe here. They're so happy. They're so free. So I'm not sure it would be a good move for them. But
Mm.
then when they've left home, and why not, right? So I'm
Yeah.
my job is such that I can work anywhere. So why not work where I'm happy?
Yeah, and it depends where your kids settle, because I don't know about you, but when my kids moved further away, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to have to move. So we did. Me and my husband moved to be closer to our children.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's not to say they won't move again, but there was one point conversation about, the nannies in Singapore are really reasonable and they're very good. I'm like, excuse me, Singapore? When are you going to Singapore with our granddaughter? So it's like, and if they did, either had an awful lot of holidays or I'd have to move too. I can't imagine not being close enough to be part of their lives and just seeing them on the little screen every day. It's interesting, isn't it? How some people go, oh yeah, my kids are in Australia, or oh yeah, we moved over here, and it's matter of fact. And I wonder what the difference is and what that connection, that draw is. It's just, I think it's how you were brought up as well.
I think it must be because my mom's parents lived in Australia. So we didn't know them, but we didn't even have screens then, right? It
No.
was a call. It was or letters. We wrote letters to my
Yeah.
grandmother. And so we were used to that.
Yeah.
And and then with my parents, all three, we were three daughters, and all three of us, as soon as we finished school, we left home and
Yeah.
left home for a better life. And my parents, spent a lot of time making sure we had the right education, even, fighting the apartheid regime, etc. But to make sure we had education, that was my dad's big driver, is education is everything. So he fought hard for that
Yeah.
and then encouraged us to go, right? So both my sisters actually came to the UK straight after school. They came to do the gap year. At that stage, there was a gap year that you did,
Yeah.
and never went back. I did it the other way around. I got a job, bought a house, I was stable, got married, and then did the move. We often debate which was the easier or the harder one to do.
Interesting.
And so we're used to it. My mother comes up, um, once a year. We because my sister lives in Sweden, my other one in Spain,
Oh,
and so we fly my mom up, and then she does the
the,
6 to 8 week
the tour.
tour visiting the families, and we do it around her birthday in June. So that's kind of,
Oh,
the tipping point, which and June is winter in South Africa, so it's good for her to escape. So I
yeah.
think it's what you used to. So in my mind, my kids must go, right? Like, so I did the most growing up I ever did in my life when I left home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in my head, they
It's a
need to
rite of
go.
passage, isn't it? Yeah, they have to go. I mean, as I grew up, my nan lived across the road, and we saw her at least twice a week, if not more. And then when my mum was getting older, we moved her to be around the corner from us. We could yell from our house to her house. We were so close. So the thought of not being that close feels really, yeah, weird for me. But I get exactly what you're saying, is you want the best for your kids. And if my children said, Mum, we're going to Australia, I'd be like, okay, then be fine. I would never stop them or do anything and stand in their way. Um,
Yeah, and it's interesting. So my sister and I actually had this chat last week. It's and we missed that. Like, I mean, we weren't close with all our family, but they were within driving distance, right? Like they were in a different city, but we could get there. On my dad's side, particularly, but my mom's brothers and sisters, etc. But all my kids are missing out. I do look at that when we went. So my husband, opposite experience. In fact, he was still living at home when I married him.
mm,
So don't do that. But and his whole family, and he's the youngest of 9 kids.
whoa.
They still all live around his dad, right? Like they're
Mhm.
all there. The grandkids, great grandkids, they're all there. So when we went for the 90th, it was packed, right? Like, I had to say to my kids, we're going to kiss a lot of people. I don't know who they all are. We'll ask dad afterwards, but just
So you can tell who it is.
just
Yeah.
go, right? Just
Go
follow
with
and
it.
say hello. Let's go.
Oh,
And then you kind of make the rule, like if they're our age, just say auntie, uncle. If they're your age, just say cousin. The truth of it we'll figure out later.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, they're just a neighbour. Oh, we call them uncle and auntie anyway. Yeah, that's what we used to do.
And and I looked at that and I thought, oh, are they missing out, right? Are they missing out? And my sister and I had this deep chat about it because she sees this as part of mm, it's part of the problem caused by racism in our head
Yeah.
because we had to leave. The opportunities for us didn't exist
Yeah.
around, and even my mom's family had to leave. They had to leave South Africa to get a better life, right? Because of the color of their skin, they weren't given opportunities. My dad had to leave his hometown because they told him if he wanted to be a botanist, but they said to him, no, only white people can be botanists. So for you, you have to be a gardener. That's the only job. And he said, no, I'm not doing that. And he moved town. So he moved away from his family. So a lot of what we don't see is this what's happened because of it, right? Is now we're spread because this is the only way we could get better lives for
Yes.
ourselves, for our kids. It's the only way. There wasn't another way. And my sister's actually quite passionate about this, and we were discussing this
Yeah.
last week. And it's interesting that you don't think about it. And for me, there's also unintended consequences. So my daughter she's like me. She's beautiful, but she's got curly hair. She's not skinny, and she's never had a date. She's 16. She's never had a date, and she went through this whole phase of I'm not attractive, mom. What's going on? And when we went back to South Africa, within 10 seconds, she was being flirted with left, right, and center. In fact, I had to do the mum, like, no, back away from my kid. Like, no, no, no. And then I realized it's because in South Africa, we
Yeah.
are attractive.
Ah,
Where generalization, of course, as you grow
yes.
older, all of that moves away. But generally with kids, right? Like generally with kids in the school she's in, she's not in the what's regarded as attractive bands. It's had a knock on her self-confidence.
Yeah.
So it's an unintended consequence of me
Yeah.
wanting this better life for my kids, bringing them here, is now I have to work harder on her self-confidence
Mm-hmm.
because I hadn't thought that through, right? And it wasn't until we went to South Africa that I put the pieces together going, okay,
Yeah.
I
And
get it. How
this
do I balance that?
this is the thing across the world, though, isn't it? There are different cultures, different ethnicities, and they all have their history that has impacted on how they operate today.
Yeah,
And it's like
absolutely.
we were watching a TV program yesterday about Black Lives Matter. And we had discussions in Collaboration Global about it at the time when it all kicked off, when Lloyd George and all of that awful thing happened. And you realize when you start going into a little bit of the history, is it's not just about slavery, it's about how
No.
they weren't allowed to have any land, they were put into ghettos, they were not allowed to have mortgages. It's a bit like the story of women not being allowed to have any property when they first
Yeah.
married a husband, not being able to have the vote. And it's like historically, people feel downtrodden and feel cross and upset about it. And that then is replicated and becomes the way we are being and who we are being. So now in the UK, there's a big backlash about, what about the Me Too movement? What about the men? And we're like, oh, sod you, you've had it your own way for donkey's years. It's our turn now. But actually, the suicide rate of young men is
Mm,
ridiculous. And it's
yeah.
as a consequence of what's been happening over the last 50, 100, 150 years. And we have to kind of stop doing this is how we are, poor me victim, but also this is how I've grown up and this is the way it is. You've just said like your husband was living with his parents. That's lovely. If you're all getting on, what's wrong with that? But there's something in our makeup that goes, oh no, man, with his mum and dad, that's not right. Why is it not
I
right?
know the only reason I'm saying that is because he never learns how to clean or cook or anything. So
well, yeah, that's
That's
hopefully
the only reason
useful.
I'm saying that.
But it's interesting how people view it, though, isn't it? We get stuck in this rut of how things are, and we have to, I mean, to go to another country and experience a different culture and go, huh, that's different to back home. This bit at home is great. This bit here is not so great, but actually there are bits that are good in both. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could take all the good bits and amalgamate them together? I mean, I'm fascinated. I would struggle to live in another country because I'm just so in a fur-lined rut in the UK. I just love the energy of the people here. But having said that, when I go on holiday, it's not to sit on a beach and read a book, although I do that as well. It's to meet the people. I want to meet people. We've gone to so many different places where we've ended up having dinner around someone's house, or we've had a conversation with somebody that's led to something else. And, so many different things that we've met the locals and had a whale of a time. And I still have their number in my phone book kind of thing. I'm still in touch now. But whether I would want to live in New York City or St. Lucia or wherever else we've been, it's just different. I'm not very good with different, but I do love different in people because it's fascinating and finding out what they had to deal with. You talk about your kids not being streetwise. There was an article on the radio this morning about women not being able to go jogging when it's dark because it's not safe in the city, any city, and how that's wrong, and how men should be taking control of the people that make us feel unsafe. And then there's you sitting there going, oh, it's so safe in England, but in South Africa it's not safe. It's the different levels of what we are used to, and you believe that your kids,
Absolutely.
yeah.
When we first arrived here, the front page news was that crime was out of control in London. We lived in London, and because there were 7 stabbings in 6 months. And I was looking at this going, that's in an hour in South
Oh,
Africa. I'm like,
wow.
this is 6 months, and this is like
Yeah.
everyone, it's like red flag, everyone's up in arms. In South Africa, that's in an hour, right? It's
Gosh, what a
and
comparison. Yeah.
and so here we've in fact we went the opposite. It was so funny. It took us a couple of months to adjust, but when we finally figured out stopping the stuff that we did automatically to make ourselves safe, we saved an hour a day. We saved an hour a day. Things like drive around the block twice before you pull into your yard in case someone's following you to hijack you. That's what you do in South Africa, right? When you get to a red traffic light, you slow down. You don't stop at the red traffic light because they jump out and they steal your car. So you slow down until it goes green, and then you keep driving, but you don't come to a stop. So those kind of things you just learn in South Africa. That's how you keep safe. You don't put anything in the front seat of your car. You put everything in the boot,
Right.
right? No laptops, bags, nothing, nothing. You put it all away. Don't wear jewelry. Like you just learn some basics,
Yeah.
right? And so stopping all that behavior saved us an hour a day. But then we went the other way, and one of our neighbors came knocking the one day. They're like, did you know you left your keys in the front door overnight? It's like, okay, too much. Pull up a little bit. So, we don't
Yeah.
have to be
Be
that
reasonable.
silly.
But I have done that before as well. Yeah. And when I grew up, my mum used to leave the door what we called on the latch. So it was slightly open for us kids to come home and
Yeah.
let ourselves in if she wasn't around. So and that was in London. That was in the East End of London. Times are changing, aren't they? It's really interesting how we allow ourselves to feel vulnerable. And in those circumstances, what you're talking about, justified, um, it's a horrible thought, isn't it, to have to be looking over your shoulder all the time just to make sure you're safe. So I can understand why there was a driver pushing you to an other country. Which one should we go to? How do you feel about, there's no right or wrong answer for this, but all the immigrants coming in at the moment and the refugees, and everyone seems to be flocking to the UK instead of kind of stopping en route through several other countries that they could go to. I mean, what made you come to the UK as opposed to France or Germany or Sweden or going Spain where your sister is?
English. My husband was adamant that he was very worried about not being able to understand anybody else. So it was New Zealand or here. That was kind of the two choices.
Okay.
He won't do Australia because he says there's too many dangerous animals that'll kill us. So that was a no. So yeah, we went to the list. English speaking, that was these criteria,
Mm-hmm.
and then looked at, and then it was up to the company to say, right,
Yeah.
I'll do whatever you want. Tell me where to point, and I'll make it happen. And yeah, I looked after Europe, Middle East, and Africa, so London was a good spot for me to be. I don't, yeah, the immigrant question is an interesting one because I'm an immigrant, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had to work hard to get in here. It wasn't easy. I had to work so hard to get in here, right?
What sort of things did you come up against then?
Well, there's, English language tests, proof that, I mean, my company had to literally prove that there was no one in the UK that could do the job that they needed me to do. They had to
Very.
show that they'd interviewed at least 20 people, and that by far my CV stacked up most. So on a work permit, you
Yeah.
have to really prove that
Gosh.
there's no one else in the country that can do that particular job. It's quite hard. Um, and I mean they did it for me. They were fabulous, but I feel like I had to jump through a lot of hoops. And so there is a part of me when people are just, walking in that feels I had to work so hard.
Yeah, you do that. It's hard.
But on the same side, I've been, not as bad as some of these poor people. My situation wasn't that bad.
Mm.
So, but it was still bad enough that I wanted to leave. So I do understand that drive to protect your family, to protect yourself, to get to safety. So I
Mm.
don't think I have a definitive answer because I understand both sides of the
Yeah.
coin.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always, growing up in the East End of London, it was a wonderful melting pot of all nationalities. And regular listeners to this will know that I went to school as the white minority. And I didn't even notice, I didn't care. It were all nationalities. The only other white girl in my class was from New Zealand. So she had a funny accent as well. And I just love the fact that over the centuries, London, as this kind of basin of um, wonderful mix of people. The French came over sort of 500 years ago, then the Jews were coming over, then the Irish were coming over, then it was the Vietnamese, and it was the Bangladeshis, and there's always been this melting pot of wonderful cultures, and every little part of London has got a little bit. There's Chinatown, there's the you want a good curry, you go to Spitalfields and you go around. So there's all these different places you can go. And for me, that was normal. That was what everyone was like. So you go and visit your friend and have a wonderful tea that you didn't know what you were eating, and it smelt divine. Never before had you, it's different to your meat and two veg that you'd have with mum and dad. And then you go to the countryside in the UK and everyone's white and you go, oh, this is a bit weird. And then, it was just different. And then, of course, you move slightly out of a city that isn't cosmopolitan, and you get racism, you get sexism, you get so many other isms around with the people that haven't experienced getting to know a different, group of nationalities. So for me, I think it's brought wealth and diversity and wonderful state of mind to the UK by having this mix. And I think as time goes on, and it's always happened in history, people from Africa have moved north, people from different continents have moved around, so you get different types of people. I mean, the mix from Indian to Asian, Asian from India through to China is different, and it's just fascinating how we've all come into this way of being. So in the UK, the whites, we've got, if you've got red hair in you, you've come from the Scots, and if you've got blue eyes and probably dark hair, you're Irish, and generally we've all come from the Swedes anyway. So it's just it depends how far back you want to go, but nobody's a real native because we've all, over the millennia, hundreds and hundreds of years, we've all moved around the planet. What makes me laugh is when people kind of lay claim, this is mine and you can't have it, and there's this line and that says it's mine and that's yours, or you've just got to go somewhere else. I don't care where you go, but you can't be here. That's where I think the world is going wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can't take this land with you, and who are you to say that it belongs to this one or this one? So long as people are getting along and can live side by side with their differences, which is what Collaboration Global are trying to achieve, then that's how we can have harmony. But there are always some people out there that go, no, 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 I'm going to muscle in here, and this is going to be mine, and you can't have it. And I don't know when that started, but you know, rather than the survival mode of caveman days where you just wanted to get food and be in your tribe, however they started it in the beginning, somewhere along the line, it's got a bit out of hand. And we just
And
don't.
that's all the wars. If you think about, the Ukraine war, what's happening in Israel, all of that is because people want more.
Yeah.
It's 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 crazy.
Yeah, and it makes me laugh. Well, not laugh, that's the wrong expression. It's upsetting that people make distinctions on things that you can't do anything about. If
Yeah,
somebody were to say, I don't like you because you were rude or unkind, that's one thing. But I don't like you because of the color of your skin. Oh, hang on a minute, I'll just change that, shall I? It's like, well, or you're choosing to have a faith in that God, and I'm choosing to have a faith in this God. So you're wrong and I'm right, and that's it.
yeah,
It's yeah. I mean, I know we are simplifying the conversation drastically,
yeah.
but why can't we start from that place? And as I've said before, if you have a foundation of love, where could you take it from there? You know, Mother Teresa wasn't wrong, was she, when she said, you know, if you love each other more, then you'll find a solution to everything. Anyway,
Absolutely.
let's find out more about you. So you grew up in South Africa, and your dad wanted to be a botanist. That's
He
fascinating.
did.
So have you got green fingers?
You know, it's an interesting part of growing up. So my dad, we grew all our own veg in the garden, like that was it. But it became a chore for us, right? For us kids was go water the plants, go dig
Yeah.
up the wormy compost, go pick the tomatoes for dinner. So we rebelled, which as teenage girls do. So none of us spent any time. But interesting during lockdown, when I think as most people, I started growing stuff and I loved it.
Ah,
Loved it, loved it. So even now that's what I do. I haven't given up. But my father had passed by then. So it's a bit sad for me. Like, oh, Dad, I wish you would see that I'm growing stuff now.
he can see.
So if you'd asked me a while back, I would have said, no, I don't have green fingers, but actually I'm doing pretty well
That's nice.
and loving it. Yeah.
Nothing beats that taste of a tomato. The one you've grown
Nothing.
yourself, and two that's been grown without all the pesticides and all the rubbish that goes with it. It tastes like heaven, doesn't it?
No, absolutely. And for me, so there's this vegetable called a gem squash, which in South Africa you get by the like you can get it anywhere, all year round, everywhere.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much I loved it till I came here and I can't find them. So
Oh,
now that's my number one thing is I grow my own gem squash every year.
isn't that
And
crazy that you can't
uh,
find them, and yet it's easy to grow here? That's
That,
strange.
yeah, they're not. There is a farmer. I found him in Sussex who's now growing. He's obviously catering for the Safa community. He charges a fortune for those gems, but people buy them.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's like a pumpkin, so it grows the same season as pumpkin or whatever. It's just little and green. But I'm even my mom knows. When I go home, when you come fetch me at the airport, stand there with a cooked gem squash. That's all I want.
What makes it different to other squashes then?
I don't know. I just like the taste.
Mm. I'm a big fan of butternut squash, I've got to say. There's so much you can
Hmm.
do with it, and it's gorgeous.
It's similar to butternut squash.
Mm.
Um,
I'm
but
gonna,
yeah, I like it. I prefer it.
yeah.
I've got two left from my last growing season, and I should cook them before they go rotten. But when it's your last, and you're like, I won't get any more till September.
But you
Like, oh,
cook it and freeze it so you don't lose them, and then you've got that you can have it bit by bit and eke
yeah,
it out. I was surprised when I found out that all these amazing people that love Halloween, it's not my favorite festival of the year, um, and there was a field just up the road from us that had thousands of pumpkins in it. Most people empty their pumpkin and they never cook what's inside. And
yeah.
apparently most of them are grown just for size, in which case the insides don't taste that nice. And I'm like, What a waste that is. It's just such a shame, isn't it?
No, that's we to be kind of we used to love I was my kids when they were younger, we used to love Halloween and stuff, but now if I look at how much I wasted on costumes, how much I wasted on those poor pumpkins or whatever. So
Yeah.
we down to minimalist Halloween. I just think the kids, while they still enjoy doing stuff with us, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Soon they're not going to want to know me anymore, so I'll
Oh,
hang
that's not
around.
the case. That's not the case. My girls are 31 and 33, and we still do loads of stuff together. So yeah, it's not always the case that they disappear off. They'll go off and they'll come back again. It was fine. What was I going to say to you? Yes, so in the Collaboration Global community, you are known as a marketing specialist. That's your game. That's your fun thing to do. Marketing is so massive.
Yeah.
What got you into it in the first place? But also, what's your kind of secret sauce? What bit do you love about marketing?
Hmm. So I see myself as a marketing strategist, which is the top of the funnel. I
Mm,
like really digging into that. My business name is the Marketing Detective Agency, and it's the detective part. It's digging into who your target client is. So everyone goes, "Oh, I sell to everyone," which is
mhm.
no. So it's really digging into your audience. Who is it? What do they look like? What is their pain point? What is it they need? And then how does your offer fulfill that need? And that's what I love doing. I love digging into that. And often people are surprised. They think like one of the most common things, especially with one man single owner businesses,
Mm.
is their target client is often the person they used to be,
Oh,
and it's who they wish they'd had to help them at that age. It's really a common denominator that I'm seeing often in coaches, for example, in a lot of those kind of um you'll when you unpack it, you start identifying, your target client is you 10, 15 years ago
yeah.
when you wish you had the support. And that's, then you can start unpacking. Don't think as you today when you talk, think as you then,
That
because that's who you're talking to, right?
must
So
be
it's
a kind
just
of moment when they go, oh, because then all of a sudden everything slots into place so much easier once they've got that, especially if it's them, because they know them. They know
ex
themselves, don't they?
exactly. So I love that. That's my fun bit is poking around, digging until we get to that.
Yeah,
Oh, I got it. That's perfect.
yeah.
And I mean how I got into it is really interesting. We couldn't afford university, so I worked as a security guard at night so that I could pay for my studies in the daytime. And part of that, I overheard some of my fellow security guards who didn't get paid a lot, but they were talking about being a bodyguard.
Right.
And then they said to me, "Oh, but it's not for girls," which red flag to a bull. So off I went and did this course. And so I worked as a bodyguard for 9 years.
Wow. Now, I would
And
not have, if you'd asked me, oh my goodness, if somebody in this community that works as a bodyguard, you would not be the first on my list.
well, and that's the whole thing because I wasn't a bouncer. People often think bouncer, right? But the bodyguard and close protection officer is the other word for it. But your job is to blend in so that you're protecting your client without anyone noticing you there. So I did a lot of like businessmen execs. I would go as the secretary, the PA, and then they're getting the protection they need, but they're not carrying a big sign above their head going, "Look at me, I'm protected,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So did that. But to do it well, you have to do a lot of prep. If you have, say, I go to a dinner,
Hmm.
it's a 3 hour dinner. I do a week of prep before that dinner. I need to investigate everything about the clients, who they are. Are they going to scream and faint if they see a gun? Because then I need to know, I need to pull them out, or, how are they going to react? Are they likely to get drunk? I need to know all about them so I can prepare. Then I need to investigate the attacker. Do they want to splash? Are they likely to use guns, bombs, poison? Are they going to come in a group? Is it going to be quiet? I need to do a lot of research on them, and then the venue,
Yeah.
all the exits, entrances, where people can hide, the route to and from, so all the ways. So you do so much prep work, and this is if you've done your job well, the evening is beautiful, everyone's happy, no one gets shot, everything's fine.
Yeah, don't get shot.
And that's the detective-y part, right? It's the
Yeah,
same with marketing. If you do all that investigation well, and yes, it's work up front, right? And that's where people get bored. But you have to, your target audience, who are they? What do they like? How do they like talking? What time of day do they go on LinkedIn or social, or are they even on there, or are they not? And if they are on Facebook, for example, are they grandparents just looking at pictures of their grandkids, or are they in buying mode? Because your head is in a different place.
yes.
So serving them up an ad for your coaching program while they're looking at kid pics, waste of time, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's so much investigation that you do
yeah.
to get it right. And then if you get it right, it goes smoothly. So that was the transition for me.
I think that's brilliant. What a story. Have you written a book yet?
Not yet, not yet. It's in progress,
We'll get you
actually. I'm
doing that.
almost done.
We'll definitely get you doing that. Because it's such a unique kind of aspect to what you're doing. Um, and I can see now, once you've done that prep and once you've done that groundwork, it's like a tap you turn on, presumably, and turn off
Yes.
again when you need to, because you know exactly who you're aiming at and when they're going to be going, oh yeah, I've got my purse, there you go, I've got my money, let's buy it. I have, before we move on from that subject of bodyguards, have you got any good stories to tell from that time?
Mhm. I've got a funny story in that, but it was early in my career.
Hmm.
I was looking after a furrier, so the animal activists were after him, but he
Okay.
wanted to go partying at this restaurant. So I did all my prep and I paid the barman. I said, I'm gonna order brandy and Coke, so I look like a fit in, but please just give me Coke, right? So not allowed to drink while I'm on the job, but I must. If you're sitting in a pub, you kind of need to look like you're having having part of it. Prepped everything. I thought I was all ready. I had a seat at the bar. I could watch the door, watch my client. He was with his friends. Everything was good. What I hadn't taken into account was, now think of it from an outsider's perspective. Here's a single, not too unattractive woman sitting at the bar by herself, ordering drinks and watching the door. So this couple, they were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary or something. They were sitting next to me and watching this, and they thought I'd been stood up.
Oh,
So they came over and they were just like, so sorry, don't worry, honey, there's plenty of fish in the sea. And oh, he's an idiot. And then they started buying me drinks, but
oh,
paying full price. Obviously, I felt so bad. And this barman was having a time of his life going, yeah, yeah, knowing he can only give me Coke. And then this woman pulls out a picture of her nephew, and he's single, and you can take his number. I mean, I was so distracted, right? I mean, I still could had to watch my client, but it was just like, haha, okay, big learning moments.
so what would you,
Move around, move
yeah.
around.
So you had to do that differently another day.
Yes.
And have you been shot at or anything dangerous happened during your time?
Yeah, I was in two shootouts. And the company I worked for, if you're in a shootout, it's a failure because you haven't prepped enough.
No.
So I did have two, and then you go back into a week of training, unpaid, because you need to figure out what you did wrong, what you missed, whatever. So it's the consequences
Hmm.
are, and then the company motto was dead clients don't pay. So you kind of, I've never lost a client. I can honestly say that.
Hmm.
And I've never physically been shot, so that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, two incidents in my 9 years.
Wow. And does that play on your mind now? I mean, we hear so much stories about good mental health and people that are still suffering from PTSD from all sorts of things that go on in their life. Has that kind of affected you later down the line?
I don't think so. When you're in the moment, and I actually, this is going to sound weird, but I used to work. I only worked part time as a bodyguard. I didn't work full time, so I had a job in the daytime, or studies in the daytime, whatever was happening.
Mm.
And I've got a very active brain. My brain never stops. But when I was on the job, I literally could not think of anything else other than the situation I was in and protecting my client. And so it was kind of like a brain holiday for me. It's really weird to explain, but because my brain had to switch off everything else that was happening,
Yeah.
had to, there wasn't a choice.
Yeah.
I was rested. So by the time I went back to later on my job or in my studies, it's like your brain got a refresh going, and then you came up with new ideas on how to fix things or other, because your brain had, you need that brain switch off period, right?
Yeah,
Um, and then I think because that's how my brain works, that parked, that is in a little box. It happened. It's parked now. I go back to my normal life.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so so yeah, I mean, other than it was really annoying not to get paid afterwards because I'd messed up. That was like the annoying part.
Yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
maybe if I'd lost the client or been physically injured myself, it would have been different. But I never lost the client and I was never physically injured myself. So
It's fascinating, isn't it, how some people can be in that situation and it's water off a duck's back because they can compartmentalize or because it just they can process what's happened to them. I.e., I could have died. I mean, that's basically how you can, if it's you're in that situation. And yet some people, just having an argument can be the world's worst thing to them and they can crumble and not be able to survive and cope with what's going on. That what I love about since the pandemic, and part of the thing that's happened since the pandemic, are we are now able to focus more on good mental health.
yeah,
And more people are aware. I was in a call just earlier today about, how do you break from your job, your daytime job, your functioning 9 to 5, in order to stay mentally, emotionally alert and happy, and you don't kind of get subsumed by what your work is all about. And it was fascinating that so many people said meditation and getting up, moving around, and all the sorts of things that we now kind of take for granted. That you mean you're not doing that? You're sitting on your bum from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. Or 6 or 7 or 8. That's not very healthy. Where 5 years ago, that was pretty much normal. That's what a lot of people would do. Start at the crack of dawn, maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock on the laptop, get going
yeah.
and stay there, maybe break for 15 minutes at lunchtime or eat at your desk and then carry on. And now that would be in any workplace frowned upon to do that sort of space, that work.
And and it is interesting when I stopped doing that. It took me about a year to figure out what I was missing, and it was that brain switch off. So now I make sure because you know, what I need to do other stuff that's intense enough to switch off my brain from what else is happening.
Yeah.
So it is necessary, and you need to work with how your body works and how your brain works to say, well, what is it for me? Like, so I've tried meditation, for example, my brain won't switch off. You know, I'll be sitting there, but I'll still be going through my to-do list or whatever I'm working
Yeah.
on. So, no, I need a little bit more drastic
Hmm.
um,
So what,
to
what do you
make it
do then?
switch off.
What's your secret to the mental strength and the chill out zone? What do you do for yourself?
Yeah, so I love a good karaoke. I jump out of airplanes. I like it's definitely adrenaline rushy kind of stuff for me. It's that's what does it. Is something where in that moment I cannot think of anything else. Like I'm terrified of heights, so I do high things often.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. And yet you would think if you'd been doing it regularly, that fear would have dissipated by now.
I'm still waiting. They keep telling me it's gonna happen. It hasn't happened for me yet, but I don't let the fear control me, so I keep going.
Feel the fear and do it anyway. Well done. That's amazing. A friend of mine did an abseil down a water tower for a charity, and the first year she did it, adrenaline was rushing, and she came down and she was like, "That's the best thing I've done in my life. It's amazing." She was so happy, and I was like, it was so high, I couldn't believe it. I said, "Well done." Couldn't, I could not do that. And the next year, she volunteered to do it again, and she raised loads of money for charity. And she came down from the abseil. She was ashen, and I was like, "What?" So she, "That was the worst thing I've ever done in my life." I'm like, but you did it last year and you loved it. But she knew what to expect. So
Mm,
her rationale kicked in. So she wasn't full of adrenaline. So
yeah.
every step, even getting up to the top of the tower on the inside of the tower, was painful. And she said, "I wanted to be sick. I just felt awful." And she's never done it again since then. It's just like there's the one time of the adrenaline keeping you going. And I've known that feeling before. And then the realistic, like, I'm hating every single moment of this, get me out of here.
Yeah,
Um,
our brains are so fascinating, aren't they? And I mean, I look at that in marketing every day because this is all the stuff you need to work through in terms of how your customers can respond, what words will work for them, what won't.
mhm.
There's all this investigation to do to get it right because we're so complex as human beings. We're so complex. Our brains are so fascinating. There's so much going on, right, under the surface.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
uh it's really interesting. And I mean, you talk about, so when I told my kids, I finally told my kids about my bodyguarding. I had to think about it a long time. Do you tell your kids you were almost dead? But I finally told them. And and well, first step back. So when I was a bodyguard, I was dating my now husband.
Right.
And at the time, he was proud. He was telling all his friends about his girlfriend, the bodyguard. He was like super chilled about it, whatever. But once we got married, he was like, this is different. I don't want to be laying here wondering if my wife is coming up. This is a whole different scenario, right? And nothing changed except a ring and a piece of paper, right? But he was like, nope, don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then with my kids, I think it was only about a year or two ago when I told them. And my daughter, she's very much like me, she was like, "Oh, mom, that's so awesome. That's like, oh, so brilliant. Like, I can't believe you've never told me this." My son, my son's autistic and he needs a lot more structure, etc. But he was like, "Promise me you're never gonna do that again."
Oh,
That was
oh,
it.
love him.
It's just like, nope, not liking that story. Don't do it again. It's so
Wow.
interesting, right? They're both my kids, but
Yeah,
chalk
brought
and
them up the
cheese in
same
their
way.
response.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's so different. And I get, going back to your marketing, how that's a fascination for you, and I can see how you've got an obsession. If you've got a client, I imagine you're obsessed until you've worked out what the magic is that will make that turn the tap on and it's going to work. Because
Yeah.
there must be this kind of test and measure and start, let's try this and see if that works. Oh no, we're going to tweak that and we're going to do it that way. And I remember one guy I spoke to who was sorting out his marketing, and he had a guy, he said, my business partner's like Rain Man. He said he's a mathematical genius and he's looking at all the algorithms and what's going to work and what's not going to work. And so he'd do something and it worked a bit, but it wasn't enough. And then do it, tweak that, and then do that. Oh yeah, it works even more, but not quite. And then he tweaked it and it went whoosh, and the whole business took off because of that attention to detail.
Yeah.
That worked really well. So have you got a success story where you've worked with a client that it's like you've got, wow, even I didn't think it was going to be that great.
Um, well, yes, over the years I've done some fun stuff. I think when I was just starting out on my own, I had a client, she writes poetry books.
Oh,
And she came to me quite specifically saying, my Facebook marketing is not working. And we unpacked a little bit. Her target audience was pensioners. So she was getting pensioners were buying her poetry books.
no.
But when we unpacked it, even though she had the right target market, and yes, they are on Facebook, they're on Facebook because the scenario I gave you earlier, they are on Facebook to look at pictures of their grandkids and play those silly what's your star sign games, those games. That's
Yeah.
that's what they were doing there, right? They were not in the buying mode. And what we actually did is we went to there's this, I don't know if they still do it because this was pre-COVID, but there was this orchestra that played in this church every Thursday
Mm.
for free. They were practicing. And but exactly her target market used to go and sit in this church and listen to them, right? And so what we did is we partnered up with them. We just paid them a fee. We had a stand with her poetry books outside there, and they just all she paid for was they swapped who paid for the coffee because they would provide coffee and tea. So one week she paid, the next week. So that was all. Like it was really a very simple
Yeah.
transaction,
Yeah.
and she made 5 times more her sales in 1 month than all the stuff she was doing on Facebook. And obviously, she wasn't paying Facebook costs anymore, etc. And
Hmm.
she was just in the right place at the right time, minimal effort,
Love.
maximum value. And that for me, that's like, yay, win, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's winning. And music and poetry, such a good combination. So they were in the right headspace, they were in the right mood.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
And
can
that,
imagine she could go around to all the women's institutes and towns women's guilds and all those kind of places and make an absolute fortune. But yeah, you're right. It isn't just about splashing it out there and hoping for the best. See if that works. It's like really trying to find out what your demographic is. I mean, you've opened my eyes when you said that basically a lot of people are marketing to themselves 10 years ago.
yeah.
And that is so true. That's like a little light bulb moment for me going on there. It's like, oh yeah, because I've always thought that for me, the people I want to tell about Collaboration Global could be anybody. We've had students arrive, I find it fascinating and join. We've had a homeless person arrive and walked away with a job by the end of the day and then got somewhere to live as a result of that. So the demographic is huge, but at the same time, ultimately, people that resonate with it are like me. And it's just like, oh yeah, yeah, just samples. And I kind of know that, but I hadn't remembered it, until you just said that. It's like them 10 or 15 years ago. So true. And I remember I had a business coach once who said, if you're a coach and you're not sure what you're doing, you only have to be 15 minutes ahead of the person that you're coaching. Because you're going through the same thing. If you're in business, you're going to be doing the same stuff they're doing, and as long as you know a little bit more than they do, you've got something you can teach them, which is what it's all about, although technically coaching isn't teaching them. That's a whole other story. One question I like to ask people, looking at the time, gosh, it's gone quickly, is imagine you're a little girl, 7 or 8 years of age, and you're really happy, life is good, you're playing a game maybe, or you're having a fun time, was a fun moment. Can you relay a story to us of when you were younger, what that looked like, and what was the incident or the moment that you go, I was really happy then?
Hmm. I think so. My dad, as I said, grew lots of stuff, and we had 3 peach trees in our backyard,
Mm.
all different peaches. So the peaches came at different times. They weren't all at once, but it was one for each of us 3 girls.
Ah,
And the happiest times, I built myself. I'm a reader. I'm still am. But we brought more books than anything else from South Africa. Literally,
yeah,
we're readers in this house.
lovely.
And I built myself this little wooden tree house. I say tree house. It was a platform made with fruit crates,
Yeah,
slates, whatever it was.
got it, got it.
And I would go and hide up there because I was the eldest. So that means I always had to look after my siblings and the eldest traits. I look at my poor daughter going, sorry, honey, that's the eldest. Um, so that was my happiest time. I would sit in my tree because we each claimed a tree, right? It was our tree. And I would just hide in there, in amongst the peach. You can pick a peach and eat it while you're reading my book.
Wow,
And yeah, I think those were the happiest.
that,
I
that's it.
can I can remember that quite clearly, sitting in this peach tree. I also remember because my sister got stung by a bee, um, because she grabbed the peach and the bee was on it. But I never got stung. But yeah, it was just it was beautiful. The smell, I still love peach blossom smell now. That's still like one of my favorite smells.
Mm,
Peach, it's the even the furriness of the peach when you bite into it, the juice,
yeah,
and just sitting in the sunshine, reading my book was just awesome.
awesome. That really does kind of signify where you are in your space now, because as a marketing detective, it is about having this what's the word, that sort of silence, that space around you in order to focus. And your life has shown that you love that focus and that compartmentalizing things.
Yeah,
And by reading, you're
absolutely.
taking everything on board, and it's just kind of like you're slightly probably OCD in an obsessive space where you love your reading, you love your learning, but also when you are on the job, you are obsessive about that as well. And by having
Absolutely.
that space, it's almost like, look, I need space from you guys because I need to think. I need for my head to do what it's supposed to do without you making noise around me and getting in the way. It's interesting how what is a really happy memory as a child is probably something that you regularly do with your family. I bet your children are both readers as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
avid readers, all of us.
it's a great feeling, isn't it? It's the first time you realize your kids are readers. I did that when we were on holiday once, and we were sitting on the balcony just before we went for dinner, and we're all changed and ready. And I said, look, we've got 5-10 minutes before we go out. Why don't we read a book? So I had my book that I was devouring, and my 6-year-old, she was reading properly then. So she had her book, and the 4-year-old was looking to picture books and everything. And my husband, who doesn't really read, was getting into a book that I sort of said, you must read this, try. We've worked out now he's probably dyslexic, which is probably where it's going, but I did kind of force him, you will read in this family. And then the 4 of us were sitting there enjoying the sort of 6 o'clock of an evening, and the sun was just going down. And I kind of nudged him and went, look, you're all reading. And I was so happy. It made me so happy to know that my love of books, they weren't doing it because they'd been told. They weren't doing it because they were looking for mum to go, look, mum, look what I'm doing. They were engrossed in those books. And it was just a magical moment, which I'm sure
Definitely.
you've had many with your children as well. Listen, Erica, this has been a delight. We have looked at how people cross the world and the globe and why they cross the world. We've looked at racism. We've looked at you being a bodyguard. Well, that came out of the blue. I love it. And how you strategize people's marketing and how you are obsessed about it. Now, there's not many people in marketing can say, oh, yes, I'll go through this theory for you. But not many people can say, I'm a detective and I'm going to get to the bottom of this and I'm going to find out who the murderer was.
It's exactly that. And I'm an Agatha Christie fan, right?
Oh, I love
I
it.
own every Agatha Christie. I watch every movie. So I'm right in there on the detective side.
Have you been to Greenway in Devon, her summer home?
No, I haven't, not yet. It's on my list.
It's
But I've
amazing.
been to all the Perot houses in London, so I do make a stop there.
Oh, seriously, it's just so, it's magical. It's where she would try her books out, her stories. She didn't write there per se, but she would try her stories out on the guests. So, and it's just so pretty near Dartmouth in Devon. Um, yeah, you've got to go. It's National Trust, so make sure you're a National Trust member.
I
Uh,
am, so that's good.
Excellent. Well, you're definitely English now then. If you're a National Trust member, that's the top goal. You can stay forever.
Well, I'm definitely English.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciated it. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, whether they need a bit of marketing or they just want to have a chat, maybe they're from South Africa or they want to reminisce, what's the easiest way of people to get hold of you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. So it's just Erica Mackay, or if you search for the marketing detective, you kind of find me as well. So I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so that's a good way to find me.
Excellent. And if, of course, you would like to meet her in the flesh, albeit on Zoom, we have our monthly meetings at Collaboration Global, and Erica is usually at one of those. And you can find us at Eventbrite, just search for Collaboration Global, or go onto the website collaborationglobal.org, and you can book yourself a space there. I hope to see you there. Thank you again, Erica. It's been an absolute joy. And I look forward to hearing more from you at our Collaboration Global session soon.
Thanks, Jill.
Take care.